Today's video is sponsored by Cricut, and long gone are the days where you just create signs for your home. No, we are creating gorgeous custom home decor pieces inspired by high-end stores. Hey there, my name is Yami. I am your Latina next door. Welcome back to Mi Casa, where I share high-end home decor and DIYs on a budget, as well as extreme before and after room transformations. In this video, we are creating some beautiful Ballard Design high-end dupes for your home. You won't believe how easy they are, so make sure to stick around so that you see how they turn out. Now, if you're not familiar with Cricut, let me share a little bit about it. Cricut is a smart cutting machine that allows you to create personalized projects with hundreds of materials. All of your work can be done on their software called Design Space, which comes free with your machine. Here you can create your projects, and you can browse from hundreds of images and fonts available to you with just a click. Once you've created your design, Design Space will send you to your machine to cut. And the amazing thing is now with your Cricut 3, you can go matless and you can go really big when it comes to all of your projects. All right, let's get started creating with Cricut. One of my favorite stores to gather inspiration is Ballard Designs, and I have been looking at their draperies, and I have come across these curtains that have these nice borders at the very end, like this one that you see right here. Now this one has a beautiful floral border right at the edge, and while it's embroidered, I think I can recreate this look for so much less. And while I do love the floral pattern, I'm kind of looking for something with a little bit more contrast, have a little bit more of a darker border instead, like this one you see right here. One of the places that I love to go to is my local TJ Maxx to get curtains, and they just have a wonderful selection, beautiful fabrics and textures, and their prices are pretty great, especially since I like to use longer curtains for my windows at 108 inches. So that can get a little bit more pricey simply because of the length. Now, I found these set of 2 window panels, and they cost me $39.99 for the set. They're 100% cotton, they're white, and they have this beautiful, simple texture to them. So I went to Cricut Design Studio to see if I can find a nice floral pattern. At first, I looked up flowers, but then I thought about looking up floral border, and a couple of good options came up. The first one that I saw was this one right here, and I knew that was the one that I wanted to use right away. The first thing I did was change the direction it was going to and made it vertical. Next, I selected it and duplicated it because I wanted to make sure I had a running border. And then I just kept adding to the border and kept adjusting it, making sure that I had the desired width and the length of the border that I was looking for. In this case, I made my border about 4.5 inches wide by 108 inches long. And when everything was nice and aligned and I have the length and the width right, then I duplicated it and then I flipped it because I wanted to make sure that each border on either end of the curtain matched. And after I was happy with how everything looked, I made sure to attach and weld everything so it was one nice cut. I sent it to my Cricut Maker 3, and since I'm using the Smart iron-on vinyl, I don't need a mat. I can just put it straight into the machine, and I will only need to do this once because I was able to put both of these in and use one whole roll. So I got 2 borders out of one large roll of the vinyl. Now for this, always make sure your mirror is turned on and your shiny side faces down when putting the vinyl in your machine. The next thing I do is make sure to select the Smart iron-on vinyl and then just load up my Cricut machine. At first, the machine will measure the entire length just to make sure you have enough vinyl to fit your entire design. And then you just press the little play button on the machine and it'll start cutting. Now once the Cricut Maker is done, just hit the release button and it will pull all of the vinyl back out. Then it's time to weed. Now because I went ahead and cut both patterns at the same time on the piece of vinyl, I did go ahead and separate them through the middle. So you will see me weeding here just one of the borders. And as always, for best results, it is really good to make sure you take your time and pull on the correct vinyl. Next it's time to apply the vinyl onto the curtain. I placed it a little bit away from the edge, just like it was on the original inspiration piece. I'll be using my heat press for this, and one of the great resources that Cricut has is their online heat guide, where you can select what type of material you're using and what type of fabric you're going to be applying it on, and it will tell you the degrees and the seconds that you need to set your heat press for. Next is time to set the iron on, and what I like to do is I like to use a little bit of parchment paper between the press and the clear vinyl as an extra layer of protection, and then I set the timer on the press and hold it down for the time that's designated. When I was done with one section, I would move the curtain and I would apply the new area where I'm going to press over the pad and then just apply it again. Then I'd let the vinyl cool off for a couple of minutes before removing the plastic. I do find that for me, I can't let it get completely cool and I can't do it right after it's been done. It still needs to be a little bit warm to the touch, and I think that that's the best time that has worked for me when removing the plastic cover. Then after I remove the clear plastic, I like to go back over it with just the parchment paper for just a few seconds on each section and make sure that I set that vinyl really good on there. And this also allows me to seal any areas that might not have gotten as much pressure in the beginning. After the first one's done, it's off to do the same thing to the second curtain panel. These are the old curtains that were in my living room, and here is how the new ones look in the space. Alright, let's see how we did. Their curtains cost anywhere between $135 to $203. This depends on whether or not it's an older curtain that they've had for a while or one that they just released. Versus mine, which only cost me $68 for the pair, and that includes the curtains and the vinyl used for this project. And if you're enjoying this video, don't forget, you can also find me on Instagram at the Latina Next Door. So I was back on the Ballard Designs website, and one of their new decor pieces were these really beautiful cushion covers. I love changing cushion covers, especially for the seasons, because it's an easy way to update your space and bring in something new. Of course, these were a little bit more than I would like to spend for a cushion cover, so I decided to recreate my own. So I knew I had to create this pattern from scratch, so I went on Google and looked up curved teardrop Png. Now you can find freebies like this online all the time, and here you go. I was able to find this beautiful one that was curved, and it was just a perfect shape for this project, so I downloaded it. When you go to Design Space, you're going to select the lower left-hand icon on your menu that says Uploads, and you're going to upload that image. You're going to select Simple, and since it's a PNG image, it doesn't have a background, so you just continue and then you select Cut Image. And then you're going to add that to your new project. Now this one is a little large, so all I had to do was make it smaller to fit my screen. I rotated it 90 degrees and then I duplicated it to get my 2 that I need for my pattern. For the center, I uploaded a pale PNG image that was just a simple cut image, and I did the same thing I did earlier, and then I applied it to my project. It took me a little while to place the images exactly how they were on the original piece, but I just looked back and checked a couple of times just to make sure I was doing it correctly. When I was happy with the placement, I just kept duplicating it and adding it to itself so that I can extend the pattern longer and create that long line that the original pillowcase had. When I was happy with the width and the length, I duplicated it to create the 4 lines that would go over the front of the pillow cushion. When I was happy with everything, I attached and welded them and then sent them to my Cricut maker. This is about 17 inches in length, so I'll need a larger mat to use this for the vinyl that I selected. Then I needed to make sure that the machine knew what I was cutting, and for this I put permanent iron on. I applied it to my mat with the color side down since it is an iron on. And once it was cut, it was time to remove it and weed. Because the patterns on the sheet were a little bit closer than I wanted them on my pillow cushion, I cut these individually. I placed my cushion cover on the heat mat, and I'm using the pillow cover blank by Cricut, and I'm just placing these evenly across the front of the cushion cover. I took my fabric measuring tape just to make sure that the spaces between the lines were similar in size. Now I didn't show it here, but I did place a piece of cardboard inside of the pillow cushion cover before I began to apply the heat press. Using some of that parchment paper as a protective layer, I added the press on and I counted down the time. And once the countdown was over, I'd shift the paper and the heat press to the next section of the pillow. Once the entire cushion was done and it had cooled off a little bit, it was time to remove the clear plastic. All it needed was a cushion insert, and here is how they turned out. Alright, so let's see how we did. Their version cost $118 per cover. I created 2 for about $36, and that included the 2 cushion covers for $9.99 a piece, as well as the vinyl that I had to iron on. For the next high-end dupe, we are looking at these green fern leaf art pieces, again from Ballard Designs. Now, these range from $220 up to $449 a piece, depending on the size that you wish to get. Now, these were beautiful. I love the frame. I love the texture, but these are a little over my budget. I had originally thought about using this color of vinyl, but it was a little bit too light, and I already had some on hand, also from Cricut, that was a little bit deeper and richer in color, and I thought it would look really good against the other original piece, which was more of that shade. I went online and searched for the perfect Fern PNG image, and I was able to find it on a free website as well. I downloaded it and then I uploaded it to my Cricut design space. Everything was perfect and I didn't really need to tweak it that much at all. So I just selected cut image and then I uploaded it to my current project. I made sure to size it correctly and that it would fit in the frame that I had planned for this. This was pretty large, so it will need a larger mat, and I selected a premium vinyl for this as well. And then I sent it to cut on my Cricut. Once it was cut, it was time to weed. I set the leaves aside and began to work on my frame. Now I've had these frames for quite some time and I have not done anything with them. I got them several years ago at Michael's and I believe they were at like a 60% off sale. I think it was like a Black Friday, and I think I got these for anywhere between $10 and $12 if I remember correctly. You can find any kind of frame in your thrift store or some really good deals when they go on sale in your local craft stores. Now I wanted to replicate the frame of the original piece as much as possible, so the first thing I did was tape it down. And then, since the inner portion of the frame on the original piece was gold, I decided to go ahead and use some rub and buff and apply it to the entire inside piece of the frame. I did this to both frames, and as soon as they were dry, I removed the tape. Once all of that tape was removed, it was time to add more. This time I'm covering the gold portion that I had already painted so that I can paint the outer portion black. For this, I used a simple black chalk paint that I had in my stash that I want to go ahead and use up. Next, I took some poster board from my dollar store. Now, we're going to be using the dull backside of the poster board and not the shiny side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start folding it in order to get the desired size that I want for my ferns. I'm not going to cut it because the original piece looked like it had jagged edges around the paper that the fern was placed on. So what I'm going to do is what we used to do when we were all young is fold the edges over and over again so that we can break it apart in a nice line but still have that rough edge. And what I'm going to do is, since it's poster board, I'm going to use a little bit of water to moisten that edge that I fold over so that it can cut easier. And using the leaf as my guide, I knew exactly where I needed to make the creases to make the paper smaller. Using my Cricut spatula, I flattened that edge, and then I would come in with my misting bottle and just wet those edges so that the edge can be nice and soft for when I decide to rip it. As you can see, it's got that nice rough edge, but it's still pretty straight. And of course, I kept on folding and removing the excess poster board that I did not need. When those were ready, I used some transfer tape to apply the fern leaf onto the poster board section. And of course, I did the same thing with the second one. Next, I removed the tape from the frames and I touched up anywhere that it needed it. And I used some of my clear wax to seal the frames. Next, I cut a second piece of poster board to match the size of the entire frame, and I'm using the back of the frame as a guide. I placed the attached leaf on top of that new poster board, and with some double-sided tape, I adhere that onto the second larger piece. I do my best to place it right on the center before making sure that the tape catches on. And then I place everything inside of the frame. Once everything was secured, this is how this one turned out. Alright, so let's see how we did. Their original pieces, for two of them in a very similar size to what I created, would have been $440. Again, that's for two. For both of mine, including the frame, the poster board, and one roll of permanent vinyl, cost me about $32. And you can always make this even more inexpensive by getting thrifted frames. That is some pretty good savings. Well, that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments below which one of these was your favorite. I used the Cricut Maker 3 for everything that you saw in this video. I have a link to their website in my description box. I also included links to all the products that I used in this video to recreate these items. Thank you so much to Cricut for partnering with me on this video. I hope you enjoyed all these high-end dupes, and I hope I inspired you to challenge yourself and create some beautiful custom home decor for your home. I will see you next week with another home decor and DIY videos. In the meantime, I have some more videos right here that you will enjoy. Until then, adios!